Hey everybody, it's savagelandsnews coming in this time with who I think, personally, right now, in the world, #1 Rhinar player, right this second, probably, right? I mean, the world's a big place.
Yeah, that's a huge place.
It's a huge place, but consistency-wise, this might be the brute to beat right now. Dex, you guys have seen him before. He's been on the channel before. You've seen him in the tournaments this weekend and last weekend. You're just making a name for yourself right now. Like, you know, how does it feel to have this much consistency on you know, Rhinar, the inconsistent hero, right?
So here's the thing. Rhinar is like, everyone thinks Rhinar is like this high variance hero, but Flesh and Blood in general, like you can't take various variants out of a card game, right? And I'm just going to a lot of tournaments. So there are tournaments where I'm going like 3-4, I'm going 5-3 at a calling, I'm going like X2 and not making top 8, right? So like at a certain point, if I'm playing well and I think I understand the game and I'm continuing to go to tournaments, eventually one of these tournaments is going to roll my way and I'm going to top the event, right? And that's kind of my current stance on it. Yeah. Michael Hamilton actually put out a really good article about that concept in general.
Yeah, I would say though, I mean, watching you, because I remember you came to the scene, started playing Rhinar, you got your name on like an event, then you got your name on like a call, or like, you know, you started topping events in the Discord talking about like, you know, local levels. And then I saw your name on a bigger event on the Tank Rhinar deck. I brought you on the channel and I was like, wow, you know, congratulations. And now you're still going up that hill, right? So I would say personally, your consistency has gone up and up and up and up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your results are really strong right now, and you should be very, very proud as a Rhinar player, right? So, you know, we've talked about this before, why you picked Rhinar and stuff like that. You know, we've gone over your deck list before, so I think this time kind of want to mix it up a little and just have like conversation with you, talking about, you know, what have you done to get to this point, right? So what, you know, how are you getting your consistency higher and higher? And like, and you know, you picked one hero, you stuck with him. Rhinar, I would call you like a Rhinar one trick at that point. Is that fair?
Oh, 1000%. Yeah, I took Katsu to one armory and people were so confused.
Oh gosh, yeah. I showed up with Levia one week at my armory, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm desperate. Lexi's ruined me." But but yeah, so you stuck through it. Like, what is your mindset? Like, really sticking with what most people called kind of like a weaker hero, right? Like, how are you getting these results when other people clearly are struggling, right?
Right. So I attribute it to a lot of practice. I am a solo act, so I don't have like a testing team. All of my practice comes from Talishar or my local armories or actually going to tournament events and playing. So the best experience I think I've gotten since July is when I started doing this. Is I started rewatching watching my replays on Talishar because I was like, I just need to figure out when I'm making these suboptimal plays that is costing me the game, or when I could have done. I'm a very cautious player in general. I think that was showcased pretty heavily on the stream when on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I needed to figure out, when do I need to be more aggressive? Like, when should I be keeping these 3 and 4 card hands and rolling scabs instead of like blocking out and then throwing back a claw or throwing back a 6? And then again, it was like a lot of practice when I first started. It was just like mastering my deck, right? So I've been playing since WTR, but I started going to armories and competing in February. So at that point, I was still learning my cards. I was going to events and seeing all these new heroes, all these new cards. I had to read every single person's armor, every turn was a confusing thing to me. I was like, I don't know like your damage ceiling here or your damage floor. And as I kept playing, it became like much clearer to me when someone was having a good turn versus when someone was having a bad turn. And now there's a lot of skill expression that I can show off from that.
Yeah. I attributed a lot of like my success on the one tricking thing as well, is like I would sit down for my opponent and I would just know every tiny little detail of my deck, right? Like I could feel when the blood rushes were coming, almost weirdly. It's like, okay, it's been a little too long. I've drawn a little bit too many blues. I'm going to be a little red heavy soon. You know, I'm going to have to balance, put a cheaper card in my arsenal. Like just those like little tiny micro decisions that you need to make Or like maybe I don't send this intimidate card right now. I put it in my pocket, and then I know I haven't seen an alpha rampage in a while. So, like those little details that, I watched your games and you were just, you knew. And a lot of the time, the people who chase the meta, they don't have that. They don't have 1,000 games
Right.
down. So they're making micro mistakes. And if you just don't do that,
Yeah.
you just win, right? Like you win by 2, you win by 4, and that's all it really takes in this game. It's still a victory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as you keep playing more, I've literally just like spent evenings like reading cards. Especially for like Dorinthia and like all those like matchups that require a lot of opponent knowledge.
Yeah.
I've just been like sitting there reading the cards, internalizing like what could they possibly have on their turn. And it's gotten to the point where I'm pretty good at figuring out like what people are arsenaling,
Yep.
why they're keeping their hands, why they're doing what they're doing, and then it makes it a lot easier to have a tank playstyle. And the Scowling Fleshbag like extremely rewards knowing what your opponent is about to do.
Yeah. Ripping a Revel and Runeblood out of their hand, taking that gamble and succeeding is insane. Like the amount of damage that card stops, right? 2 by itself, and then sometimes 6, 7, 8 damage, a pummel, a discard. Like that card is my favorite type of card. Such like skill expressive, right? Like it's a card that's good, but it can be really bad. And I think that's the way the game should work, So you just grind it. You've been grinding a lot, memorizing your deck, memorizing your opponent's deck. Was there a moment in time where you kind of like had a click in your head with Rhinar specifically, where you're like, okay, I wasn't doing this before. I found this little trick, or I found this way of looking at him that's a little different, and now I'm seeing the results go up? Or like, was there a moment like that for you?
Yes, I feel like every single game I play, I can learn from it. It annoys some of my locals because like I'll win and then I'll still be like, I did this wrong, and then I did this wrong, and then I did this wrong. And every single time that happens, I like internalize it. So there was a time, I'll just give like a brief example. Like I arsenaled a Savage Feast, and then I was expecting a Blood Rush to come, and it did, but then I didn't get the 6s I needed, so I couldn't clear the Savage Feast from my arsenal to put the Blood Rush in. And I couldn't do anything with the actual Blood Rush in hand aside from like pitch it to a claw, right? So I was like, okay, now I need to be careful about when I'm arsenaling my Savage Feast. There was like a time early on when I was like arsenaling Reckless Swing early, and you'll see this in the Bravo game earlier, which I did not want to do, but I ended up doing. And arsenaling Reckless Swing early is like horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. And so just like understanding like my deck and figuring out, absolutely, there was a turning point is the answer.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was. I was like really early on in the game. I played Rhinar like pretty early, but I just couldn't figure out like success, right? I just didn't get it. So I switched over, finally got kind of bullied off of Rhinar by my friends and stuff like that, and played OTK Viscerai. And I loved that. Like I like just in my head, if I have one simple thing to do and I just have to do that one thing perfectly, I'm pretty good at it, right? So one-shotting an opponent with Viscerai was perfect. I only have to do one thing: defend and build a combo. And after playing him for so long, doing pretty well, getting my first wins, and then I picked up Rhinar again, and I was like, wait a minute.
I get it now.
You only have to do one thing with Rhinar, and it's Blood Rush perfectly. And if I just do that perfectly, so that was like my turning point. Yeah. And arsenal management, I think you pointed out, people at home who are watching this who really want to get good at Rhinar, there's been a couple examples where I've lost a game, and I realized I lost the game because I put a 3-cost yellow in my arsenal when I shouldn't have. It's like something so small like that, right?
Yeah.
It's so small.
I think people who watch my matches into Dash.io and then just take my list straight into Worlds expecting to do well, will find that it looked like I was just like sitting there blocking, but I think they didn't notice that I intellect penalty myself like 5 times in that game, specifically because I didn't want to arsenal a dead card.
Right.
And like there was questions in the chat, and I was like, this is what needs to happen. Like if I put this 6 into my arsenal, I'm committing to having to keep a card to throw it out to put a D-react later. And I can't always guarantee that I won't take like a Boom Grenade Max V in exchange for that. So
yeah, it's like those really tiny micro decisions that just come from one tricking a hero like that. You can, yeah, Rhinar can lose the game in so many different ways. It just like with one tiny micro decision, because your arsenals are so important for blood rushes, right? Like I've gone over the math before. It's literally exact math. If you don't have
Yeah.
tunic and you don't have a blue, it won't work. You're gonna do
Yep.
11. You can't do 11 with your blood rush, or you lose. So it was really cool to watch you play. It was really impressive. I actually just got back from my like 4 months, right? So I watched her game. I was like, okay, how the fuck does dash IO work? And I watched her game and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to learn this over again. Oh, there's so many new cards. I don't know what they do. But it was cool to see you execute it like on such a high level.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, really cool. So, you know what else has happened recently that is really exciting? Is it heavy hitters?
Heavy hitters?
Oh my
Perhaps?
god, heavy
New
hitters.
Brute cards?
New Brute cards. You're winning events right now without new ones.
I know.
Oh,
I've said for a
gosh.
long time that Rhinar didn't need anything. I was ready to win. I went to Battle Hardened Cincinnati in July, disappointed that I didn't win that tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an Iyslander, right?
Yeah. It was Rhea. Yeah.
Icelanders are the worst. I don't care what everybody at home says, man. That matchup is not free. It's not free at all. Iyslander is a pain in the ass for tank Rhinar. It's a pain in the ass. It does everything you do, but slightly better.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I lost to it in top 4, so
Oh, so sad. Iyslander was the bane of my existence for like a year. It was the only thing that gate kept me from tournaments. It was crazy. Iyslander knocked me out of my top 8 at the calling.
Damn.
Yeah. It was my
History.
first. Oh man, that's when Chandler won. So I'm still happy. We kind of handshook each other and we're like, one of us has to do this.
Nice.
It wasn't
nice.
Wasn't me at all. I got beat down by an Bullander.
Meanwhile, Gem made me like put Brutes into the ground on Saturday. It was very sad.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it just like too much taxation? What got you?
No. I had to play against 3 Brutes on my way to top 8.
Oh, that's even worse.
I had to like take them out. Except for Michael Fung still made it, but yeah.
Every time I run into one of the callings, weirdly enough, there was 4 Rhinars total. Yeah. And I played 3 of them. I was the 4th one. And it was like match 1, match 2, match 3. And I was like, this is evil.
I swear, Gem hates heroes. There was a GSC Smash with Green Tree, the team. There was 2 players who brought Riptide. And then round 2, they were both 1-0 and got matched into each other. And I was like, unbelievable that you would do this.
I can't believe. I also swear Gem, okay, getting into Gem conspiracy theories. Gem isn't random. There's something about it. I play the same people at every event, the same people at my armories. Like, it's weird, but like if I go to a big event with my team, I know I'm going to play one of them because I played that guy every single time on like round 3. Every time. I don't know what's going on. But back to heavy hitters. Okay. So, what do you think of the new cards? Because I am really excited about the idea.
What was the blue called again? It was like,
oh man, I don't know. I have to pull that up. But it was the betting card, right?
Yes. So there was Talk a Big Game. That's what it was.
Yes, that's it.
So Talk a Big Game and Runner. Runner I thought was really interesting. I will have to keep an eye on those agility counters and see if they make. Currently, it seems like a cheetah card for like pulping Wild Ride the deck, but I'm wondering if it like makes E-Strikes more popular, or Madcap Charger finally sees play, or Breakneck Battery, something like that. And then Talk a Big Game, I think, is like cracked. It seems quite good as a blue. It blocks 3. You say blue. You say 4 on a swing big, and they have to give you 2 cards. It gives Rhinar an on hit. It's so good.
It does. It also does like the betting thing, the gambling thing, right? So like you can be, okay, I'm going to do 40 on my next turn. And that could just be a pummel. Like the opponent has to respect the pummel, or they just give you that many +1s. You know what I mean? Like you're going to come in for 10 on your next 2 for 6. That's crazy. So what do you hope the most from heavy hitters? Because there's probably a new Brute hero, right? Like, so what do you think thematically would be the most important for you?
So we saw on Smashing Performance that there's a character called Cox, and I
Yes.
think that's just like such an unfortunate. It's like such an unfortunate name, but I love. I can't wait to be if they give me Cox as a hero. I think it'd be so funny for someone to sit down and be like, "I'm on Azalea." I'm like, "I'm on Cox." So
Yeah,
funny,
it's gonna be great.
so perfect.
Yep.
Activate Cox's ability. Oh, perfect. Uh,
And you get to say
so,
it like really straight
so
faced every time. I'm gonna trigger
yes,
Cox right now.
trigger Cox. Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. So would love to see some sort of like brute based like a wagering mechanic.
mhm.
I would love to see a second legendary leg piece that gives brutes an option other than scabskin leathers. I think
Mm,
scabskin leathers is really cool, but I feel like you can like really innovate brute gameplay by giving us like something else.
yes.
Um, I'd love to see more cards that have effect on discard. So like the
Mhm.
skull crack, beast within, massacre effects. I think
Of
those are
course.
also really quite neat.
Yeah.
And I'd also love to see some like intellect boosting style of play that we've been
Mhm.
seeing from like Chain and
Mhm.
to an extent like Prism has like this kind of like very combo heavy I'm gonna play this card, I'm gonna put a card into my soul, I'm gonna get an angel, I'm gonna get an effect out of this, get a card from my deck, put it onto the battlefield, kind of thing
Yeah.
like that. And a dash to an extent like has this too. So I would love
Yeah.
for like a card that lets me like block from the graveyard if it was discarded this turn, or I don't know,
Oh,
something like that.
like kind of like expendable limbs for Levia. Like
Yep.
your D react is negative, but then it's kind of not. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of interesting because I was making a video at one point. I never finished it because of the whole work trips and stuff like that. But I was going into like class thematics, you know. So the idea of like how the classes feel as a whole, and like do they have like the right kind of vibe to them, or like is it intentional, you know? So think about like illusionists, right? They have a pretty concise theme, right? It's like summon things, put them on the table, and like trade your health to do damage over time, you
Yeah.
know. And so I was kind of on the list going down, and I was like, huh, you know, like weirdly, my favorite class personally feels really not thematic. It's like ninjas too. Ninjas kind of, you know, Katsu and Fi don't really like interchange each other very much. They don't interact with each other. They don't really have like the same combo lines or themes. They
Right.
both just kind of vomit damage, you know. You know, but Levia and Rhinar have like nothing in common, right? The new set
Yeah.
gave Levia discarding, I guess, you know, like but worse. And we both play Blood Rush Bellows, and that's kind of like what we do. So I always thought it was kind of strange to me that like I didn't feel the thematics of Brute very much. And the wagering card, the first one they showed, I was like, oh my gosh, this could be it, right? Like this could be the theme I've been looking for.
Yeah.
If you could design a brute hero, like where would you start? Would you go like full crazy aggro, all discard draw, or like where would you kind of go? Where do you want to see the class go? Tanky, whatever, you know?
That's actually so funny that you asked because I was thinking about this like earlier in the year. I
Mhm.
would love a draconic brute that has a weapon, like a bloodthirsting weapon or something, where it's
Oh
like you get more, the weapon gets more powerful the more damage you take,
yes.
and whenever you discard a 6, you lose life.
Oh, that's a
Unfortunately, this
sick concept. Oh my god.
right. So I thought that would be like a really cool idea. Unfortunately, this does make it like super powerful into wizards because they go like hit you and you go hit back for 30.
Yeah.
Uh,
You
so that
store
could be
that.
kind of like
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh. That
Um,
would be really cool. I like that idea. I've always thought that brutes should be a ramping class. So
so it could be like a two. The weapon could be like a 2 cost attack 3, and then each time you discard a 6 in your turn, it gets +1. Like each time you lose life in your turn, you get +1 to the
oh,
weapon.
that's
So then it like
cool. Yeah. I've for a long time thought that the thing missing from both of the classes is like ramping damage or ramping something, because there's, you know, clearly a design choice. No on hits, right? So that's a design
yep.
choice. It's intentional. A little bit more variance is like all obviously intentional. Um, but right now the payback has always kind of been like not that great for variance, which is why I think the number one list is always like consistent tank Rhinar, right? It's like
Well, the thing is with Rhinar, and I think why the reason that the reason why I think the tank Rhinar list is so good and why it works for me is because Rhinar has like 2 flaws in my opinion that no one really people talk about it less than they go like you have to roll scab skins. But
right.
the 2 main issues I feel like is Rhinar has a really hard time clearing 4-card hands effectively.
Yes.
So even if my opponent like goes, I'm fully blocking you out every single turn, and they give me 5 cards every single turn, there is a chance that I will fail to clear those hands, and then I will take an intellect penalty, and then I'll throw a 6, and they'll be able to get back into the game. The other situation is like there is really no comeback mechanic for Rhinar. If I am 12 life down, I am likely going to die. So there is the reason why I'm so cautious with my life total is because like at a certain point, I can't give up my life anymore to Blood Rush or to barraging Alpha Rampage to close out a game.
Yeah, I mean those words are perfectly spoken, right? Like Rhinar, if you get below 10 health and you have a Blood Rush coming, like the Blood Rush might as well not exist unless you have like a tunic and you're just gonna Hail Mary your Blood Rush, right? Like Hail Mary 2-card Blood Rush and hope that you get 2 blues or whatever, you know. And and there's like there's the comeback mechanic only exists at 2 health or 4 health if you have Reckless Swings, right? Like that's your only comeback mechanic is try to hold on and then Reckless Swing, or lock them a little bit with the 2 for 6 Intimidate and hope that you hit one of their good cards. But yeah, it's really true. Like that is his biggest flaw. And then his variance also typically equates to standard damage in my opinion. Like we jump through 2 hoops and we can do 20. And most opponents can just find 20, you know, like they just 12, 2-card 12s, like, or 3-card 12s. Some opponents just have 3-card 12, and we have to like roll scabs, hit the right card, discard something, you know, have tunic available. Like everything is, so we're just like one level below, and then Blood Rush is, keeps us up, right? Blood Rush is like our comeback mechanic.
Yes.
Do you want the next Brute hero to be more random? Or less?
No. Oh God, no. I would like a very I would love like a I already love Rhinar so much. I don't know like what hero they could print that would like make me switch off of him, but what I'm looking for is a backup hero in case like Rhinar LLs sometime in the next 5 years. And who knows? I'm looking I'm looking to get LL points, so we'll see if
already got some.
That ends up happening. Got me 4. Got me 4.
They upped it. Yeah, you got 4. Yeah. I'm worried that one of the next Brute heroes is going to be like all draw discard. Non-block and draw discard hero. And I'd be like, huh. No thank you. No thanks. But I would love a ramping hero. I'd love if like our damage did something, you know, like just give us like one thing for our next turn, you know, if it just did a little, you know, a little thing.
I'm obviously not a game designer. I don't, but like personal opinion here, I don't like non-blocks in Fab. I think it ignores one of like the critical mechanics of the game, which is blocking. I would much rather they balance, like if they found a way to like give us some cards and then it says 1 block on it. If it's like if pulping or wild ride with 1 block, sure.
Honestly, even just to pop a dragon or something like, yeah.
Oh, that's fair. I guess that's the reason why they don't do it.
I don't,
because
I truly have a hard time understanding. You know, like I wish somebody would just come out and explain it, because maybe like my monkey brain just doesn't get it. But like our non-block cards, aside from, in my opinion, I still defend Smashing Performance as a I get why they made it non-blocking. It does have like a very powerful effect if an item is very strong, right? But like
it's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
It does something important. It manipulates the table. Not very many cards just straight up manipulate the table, but like Pulping and Wild Ride just don't do anything more than like other cards do, in my opinion. They don't do anything special, right?
My biggest issue with Pulping Wild Ride is, aside from the draw discard mechanic, which I already don't like in a list like mine, where I'm lower on 6s than I think like every other Rhinar list I've ever seen. And so like the chance of me whiffing is like so high, almost. Especially 50%, and as the game goes on, it gets higher, right? Because I'm attacking with my 6s and I'm pitching blues and yellows and whatever. And the issue I found with them is like it's impossible to pivot with a Pulping or Wild Ride in hand. You are committed to aggro if you have those cards. Unless you have like a Sink Below to get them out of there, they are not blocking. They're stuck. If you draw Pulping, Wild Ride, blue, yellow, they go CNC target your arsenal. You're giving them that blue and yellow, and then what's your turn? Pitch both of those, attack with Claw. Awful.
Getting 2 in the same hand is such a nightmare sometimes. It's like Like you like you said, you're stuck. You're just like, okay, the on hit is gonna hit me, or I do nothing. Uh, yeah, the commitment level is crazy, and the payoff is like, I made for fun just an all non-block deck because it's like, okay, why not? Let's try it. I couldn't
Yeah.
even I couldn't beat anything, and so it's like
You're
they're
like, let
not.
me do my best ninja impression.
Yeah, every one of my cards is like barely at rate, and I still, yeah, okay. But heavy hitters looks amazing. 3 of my favorite classes coming out. Guardians, I think, are fun and fair. Warriors are fun sometimes. I hope it's not too degenerate. And then, the wager mechanic looks good. And the tokens are the most important thing to me, I think.
Yeah.
So Outsiders, we saw the 3 tokens, right? It was a
Mm-hmm.
huge part of that set. Basically,
Yes.
everything interacted with them. And now we know at least 2 tokens exist in this set. And Brute cards have them on them. So maybe we will see that ramping style where, like, if this hits, I make a token. And if I have a token, my cards interact with the token. And then I'll do more damage next turn. So that would be cool.
It would 1000% be super cool.
Oh, man, it would be so sick. Okay. So, are you traveling anytime for what's your next event really going to be like? Are you targeting anything in particular? You're trying to hit Pro Tour? Are you trying to hit Worlds next year? What's going on with you competitively?
Yes. So as we both know, we're both missing out on Worlds.
I'm so sad.
Super sad.
Sad.
I wanted to go so badly this year.
Yeah.
Not even to like compete seriously as a Worlds competitor. I would just probably be playing in the calling.
Same.
But like I just really wanted to go back to Spain.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And that sigil card is beautiful.
The sigil is so pretty.
Oh.
Regardless, okay, back to the question. I'm intending to go to Battle Hardened Cincinnati, which
cool.
is in I think it's the early January.
Oh, nice.
I would love to make New Zealand heavy hitters launch happen. I feel like I have to go. It's my Brute set.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
But those flights are crazy town.
It is
so
prohibitively expensive, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like what's keeping me. I haven't made a decision on that yet. I'd like to go, especially if there's a cosplay contest. I'm like 95% going.
Oh yeah, you need to get your tailor. Somebody's got a challenge. Somebody's got to take some of those tailors.
I made a list of goals for the 2023-2024 section, and I'm like halfway through it. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, I remember you gave me the list. You did like most of it already. You just need the tailor.
Yeah.
That's like your last step.
I need the tailor. I need a top 8 calling, and then I think those were the 2 things that I was missing.
Yeah, honestly, I think you did it. That's impressive, right? He
bingo,
wrote down the
bingo
list and he did it. Like, you guys, this is all it takes. Just do it. Just go out there and try.
The level of delusion that I have is obscene.
I would say that's not true. Competitively, if continuing to perform better, and it's not that hard, to be honest. Like,
oh, thank you.
I've watched you play. You can do it. This is your time. Honestly, this is your time. So you want to top 8 at calling, and you want to hit heavy hitters world premiere. That's going to be interesting. It's all limited, but it'll still be fun.
Yes.
So which is there? I don't think they've released too much of the schedules for next year competitively yet. So
I will be going to Pro Tour LA because I qualified through the ProQuest. So I will be doing that, and there is guaranteed to be a cosplay contest there, so I'll be doing that as well.
Oh, you're gonna do the cosplay contest and get your top 8 calling in the same weekend?
Hell yeah!
Imagine. That would be so sick. Last time you said it on this channel, you did it. So I believe you're gonna do it. I believe.
Yeah, I just gotta keep believing.
Any insights on what the cosplay might look like? Or are you trying to keep that a secret for now?
I think I'm gonna keep it slightly under wraps because my skill in creation is not at the same level as like someone like Carolina or Rachel or honestly a bunch of there's so much talent in the cosplay community. It's crazy. So I'm relying on a kind of more of a performative aspect. So I'm going to be doing spoilers. It's one of our favorite cards in terms of art, and it is terrible. So you should know what it is at this point. And I
can't wait.
Yeah,
can't wait.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That would be sick.
So
oh my goodness.
I'm hoping to rope some other people in to like help me with the performance. So watch Flake, you perhaps if you're there. Sure. Be really cool.
Pro Tour's on my wedding day, so I can't go.
Oh, right. Damn.
I know. I'm missing both major events. One's like close to me for the first time. I literally was like, "Hey, can we move our wedding?" And that conversation went about as well as you think it did. So it's not moved, and I will not be
Oh,
there.
so, oh, damn! It's like,
It's-
oh, so you're moving the wedding?
no, I
Well,
tried.
congratulations, like
Yeah,
on the
thank you
wedding.
so much. Thank you. It's going to be wonderful, but I'm going to be a little FOMO twice in a row. That's okay. I believe you. You're going to be the Rhinar that takes down that calling. I believe it.
Thank you. I'll do my
So yeah,
best.
Spike and Pro Tour. If only I was any good at limited at all. So are you good at limited?
I think so. This is an interesting question. I think limited is currently hamstrung by the community's lack of experience with the card game. I think Fab is a very difficult game to grok in the same way that Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh is, like where certain cards have certain functions where in Fab every card has every function.
Yeah.
And you have this chance of getting into a draft with 7 people who might not exactly know or evaluate cards the same way that you do, and then you end up with like a weird trash pile.
Dude, I want to say that I'm not a great drafter, right? I know this. It's like my biggest weakness as a player. It's why I know I just at this point in time can't perform in a major event. I just I do day one, I feel great in CC, and then I drop and do the calling. That's just who I am at this point. But
That's my personality.
yeah, it's like I really, really wanted to do well in Outsiders at Pro Tour. Like I took it seriously for the first time. I was like, no, you know what? I can do this. I vibe with this set. I'm a grindy player. This is a pretty grindy set. And I swear that the person to my right and the person to my right sandbagged me on purpose. Like that was just the
Yeah.
way I felt. Like the end of the draft pod, I was like, how did you give me these signals? What were you thinking? And then I spiraled and didn't want to do well anymore, So yeah. It's hard. Draft is hard.
It just
other players
it really
consistent.
sucks because like even in Magic or like comparing draft formats, right? So even in Magic, if you get like a trash pile, you can still go 3-0 based on like, and that's not to say that you can't have a bad deck in Fab and then still 3-0. It's just like if you are in a pot of 8 and you end up in a pod where you have 3, let's pretend we're talking about heavy hitters, right? 3 people go Brute, 2 people go Guardian, and then 3 people go Warrior. The Guardians are clearly already favored into anything that they're playing against because they had a larger card pool that they can use. And then the Brutes and the Warriors are kind of like at a deficit, right? So I don't know. It's tough. I wouldn't say that I'm an exceptional drafter, but I would say that I feel like I can evaluate cards reasonably well at this point.
That's how I feel too. It's like I feel like I'm making the right decisions. I watch the conversations on the internet. I have people I know are really competitive, telling me what cards they like and what they're doing. I do really well in testing, and then I fail, and I'm like, huh. I just like I drafted with really good players intentionally, and I felt like I was hanging out, and I was getting second place, first place, fourth place, whatever sometimes. And then I went to the event, and I was like, I don't think that my practice with good players was the right strategy.
Right. Practice with people who make extremely confusing decisions. Yes.
Yeah. Practice with the 2 ninjas who are going to hand me bonds and Dust Wave, and then still pick ninja. I don't know. Okay. So
I think my biggest like gripe with draft, really as a one trick, right? I love playing Rhinar. I have a specific style that I like to play. My biggest gripe with draft is like what I want to do is not always what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also tend to thematically just enjoy a hero, and I'll tend to pick them intrinsically, even when they're not the best in draft. It's like, I picked Dromai pretty much every single time during Outsiders season in draft, and that was like not the play. But whatever. Okay, so you do have a new list, and today I really thought we've gone over your list before. You've publicly posted them multiple times, so I thought this time, instead of just kind of doing a deck, we go in there, we snapshot a couple interesting card choices you made that are different than your last versions, and then maybe we watch a game together that you played, and you try and teach us how to be as good as you are. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Let's do it. All right, so we have his list right in front of us, right? This is his newest version, right? You've had 2 versions in like the last 2 weeks, I would say, from what I saw in the Discords, right?
Yeah, so I've been playing some sort of iteration of this deck since July-ish. So there's been many iterations, most of which don't make it out of Fabrary.
Yeah.
And just go to armories, go, wow, I don't like that at all. I'm going to change some stuff, and then
I can totally relate with that. I think my personal list, it's like trash list 1, and then I've gotten all the way up to like trash list 11 when preparing for like a big event. So
Yep.
totally get it. All right. So, I mean, everybody who watches this channel, I think we all have seen, we've seen Dex's list before. We've seen his list in the Discord. We've all been paying attention. And, you know, we kind of at this point, I would say, understand what the armor and equipment and the main cards do, most likely. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think we really have to cover it. The only thing I would say maybe from the armor perspective is, you know, you do have cross-strap and Fendals, right? So I think a lot of us have moved that direction at this point. But, you know, do you want to explain why you keep both and not just one?
Absolutely. So you've had multiple videos on your channel at this point about brute math and how important it is for us to successfully blood rush to execute our blood rush game plan, right? So we want to be using blood rush and then claw, and then usually attack with a 2-cost attack, or sometimes even a 3-cost attack. And Fendals really helps make that happen. It can help fix your hand if you haven't drawn a blue on your blood rush draws. And also you can even, if you have like an awkward blood rush hand, you can start a blood rush with a Fendel Spring Tunic, even if that's like not super desirable. Yeah. Also, it lets you run a lot of 1-cost attacks. I believe Pedro, who top forward the Battle Hardened in Brazil, was using Fendel's Spring Tunic with Sensor, which I think is a really cool adjustment for the Lexi meta.
That was cool.
And then for me, it's mostly for Oasis. So I have the additional option of bringing that into some of like the matchups where I need to block more heavily, and I can use the tunic from the tunic counter to play Oasis.
Yeah, tunic Oasis is always my favorite. When you can find the timing and it all works up magically, it's beautiful. And gain or save 4 life, gain a life, and you know, still have a whole hand to deal with is pretty awesome. Okay, and then I'm assuming you run Heart and Cross Strap into the closer aggressive matchups, right? Like the ones where you really just want to start off the gate with the first blood rush, no matter what cards are in your hand.
That's correct. It also doubles up reasonably well as a defensive card as well. You wouldn't think so, since it's just a 1-time 2-cost less 1 card. But sometimes you're playing into aggressive deck like Fi or Katsu, and I would say this card always comes in with Savage Beatdown. I'm almost never bringing in Heart and Cross Trap if I'm not bringing in the 2 Savage Beatdowns. Okay. And it really helps you fire off that card, as well as if for some reason you need to block out with your full hand, that means you're blocking all perhaps like 12, 13, 14 points of value from your hand, and then you have CNC or Erase Face in your arsenal, you can still fire that off for a incredible 18-point turn, right? So like helps you keep tempo.
Yeah, it's amazing. I would do that into like dashes last season, where it was like, yeah, block 12, block 13. Here's a Erase Face, give me 2 cards, buy me a whole turn, you know, set up something for my next rotation. Yeah, it's really strong. And also, I mean, there's just nothing like playing Swing Big for free. Like, it's just
true.
Here's 8 for 0. Good luck, you know? I mean, it's not really 0, but okay. So your equipment, pretty standard. You know, you're kind of on that aggressive train, AB3, you know, just you got to respect wizards no matter what, right? And then I think the other main thing that I noticed is you have a lot of barraging beatdowns in this list, including a yellow one. So what was your thought going into this with like Alpha Rampages, barraging beatdowns, like stacking up these Intimidate cards?
Yeah, so Alpha Rampage and barraging beatdowns are, well, let's specifically talk about Alpha Rampage, because that's a card that's good at the start of the game on turn 1, and then B at the end of the game to kill someone. Every single other time, it's a block 3, almost always. Yeah. Or it can help you if you have like a 4-card hand and one of them is a barraging, and then your opponent isn't exerting pressure, you can push a nearly unblockable 13, and that's still pretty good. The barragings, on the other hand, I find to be useful throughout the entire game. They both enable you to have this like initial start where you're sometimes pushing 4, 8, 12 damage at the start of the game, and then also in the late game they close out things for you. But in the mid game, you can still present a barraging beatdown with a claw to force 2 blocks, right? If an opponent doesn't block you, then they're taking 7. Yep. And if they do block you, then thank goodness they blocked you.
Yeah,
And
I always my friend who I play test a lot into when we're kind of ramping into Pro Tour. Every time I do red barraging claw, he was like, "This just feels awful. Like
yeah,
it feels awful as the receiving player because I don't want to give you 2 cards for 3 damage, but if I
yep,
take 7, like I'm also kind of dumb, So it's like it's kind of like
yeah,
this weird trap where you can get in your opponent's head. It's like it's hard to look at 7 damage and know you can turn it into 0 with just 2 cards.
yep.
But then it's like, oh, do I really want to
Sometimes
block a claw?
sometimes it upgrades their pummels to sync belows, but ultimately that means they're not pummeling me, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I'll take that. Please. Give me all of your red pummels. I would love that. I would trade a red barraging beatdown for a red pummel any day of the week, Any day.
1000%.
Okay, and
But
then
there used to be. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
There used to be 3 red barragings, but I switched to the yellow one simply because I'm on a lower yellow count than most other Rhinars out there,
Mhm.
and I was noticing some inconsistencies, and I thought like I'll trim 1 point of damage here to make sure that I have the point of damage during Blood Rush.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like yellow is invaluably more worthwhile than red a lot of the time since most of our attacks cost 2. So it totally makes sense. Trying to find your ratio is really important on Rhinar, as we all know. Um, and then you're on E-Strike. So I still really don't personally have a really hard time valuing this card. It's like I either love it so much in a game or I find that it trips me up all the time. But clearly you're on the E-Strike train. What's your thoughts on this card in Rhinar?
I'm actually very similar to you on this thought process. I recently, when I made my sideboard guide for Battle Hardened Pittsburgh, I noticed I was actually trimming E-Strikes relatively frequently when I was bringing in more D-Reacts.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, maybe I should be moving E-Strike to a sideboard card. However, I think it's because of how useful Warmonger's Diplomacy is as a card. I think it's like the best thing since like CNC. That card really shuts down people's turns, especially
Yeah.
decks that are good into us, and Lightning Strike kind of lets that pop off even more because you can go like E Strike into Warmonger's Diplomacy, and people rarely block E Strikes, right? They're afraid of like, is that E Strike swing big? Then I want the Quicken
Yeah.
token, or is
Yeah.
that E Strike CNC? Then I want to block the CNC. So here they take 5, and then you Warmonger stuff their turn, and then you have another 4 cards to hopefully find a Blood Rush. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that by itself, when you just explain that, makes so much sense, right? Because most of the time people do fear the second card over E-Strike, so they're not, unless they're like a pure fatigue deck, which it's unlikely they're going to try and fatigue a Rhinar anyways. Like they're probably going to eat this. And Warmongers is it's not just strong, but it's particularly strong into all of Rhinar's worst matchups, right? Like Viscera,
Yes.
Azalea, Dash, IO, maybe kind of to some
Yep.
extent, right?
Turns
So
off
yeah,
her hero. She can't use her chess piece to gain more pitch. It's just very good.
yeah, it's great. Oh yeah, I really like that tech. Now that you said that, I don't think I was really looking for that kind of wombo combo, but it makes a lot of sense. And then all modes are good with Rhinar, right? We have pretty low blue
Yeah.
quantity, so like sometimes doing 7 off a red is really important because we have a hard time with consistency because we're running so low blues. And then drawing a card is cool, It's nice that we can
Yeah.
stab skins, E-Strike, draw a card, so 5 for 1, which is pretty good. 5 for 0
Mm.
is like really good actually. So okay. And so then we got the rest of our reds, right? I think these are just, standard pack hunt, savage feast, gold crack, swing big, anything you really want to talk about. I mean, those are like kind of the cut and paste reds at this point in time, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I have anything special to say about those at this point.
Yeah, it's just like hope you hit scabs. And this honestly ending on a savage feast with a blood rush, ending on a savage feast is actually really cool too because like
Incredible.
you can get an arsenal target off of it. It intimidates a second time. You can use your tunic to do it. It's pretty nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the major things that you kind of already touched on this a little bit, where you're breaking away from a lot of the other lists, is that this list has less yellows in it than normal, and I believe the list that you ran before had even less yellows. So what's your
Yes.
thought process on your yellow quantities right now?
So for a while there, I was on 11 yellows, I believe, and
Crazy.
they were fine. The majority of the time I was succeeding my blood rushes, but I was noticing at events and like longer armories and pro quests, like when I was just like playing the game, playing the deck over some time, right?
Mm.
I was noticing that I was semi frequently hitting a claw into like Smash Instinct or something, where it was just like not the blood rush that I needed. Like the damage wasn't coming through. So I was like, okay, I'm clearly suffering in terms of pitch value. So I need to figure out, and this is when this is because I added E-strikes. So E-strikes are 3 extra reds. And I was like, I can't trim any of these other reds. Like I can't trim Swing Big. I can't trim Skullcrack, Savage Feast, Pack. Those are just like staple, really good Rhinar Brute cards, right? And I also wasn't willing to trim like the Alpha Rampages and Barraging Beatdowns like some other people were. So I had to trim from my yellows, and that ultimately hurt me a bit. And now that I've found like a better balance, my blood rushes are like beautiful. Chef's kiss. They like, almost never fail on the 14.
Yeah, 14. Yeah, so it's like you kind of wiggled a little bit back up towards you were, main difference being like you have an extra barraging beatdown, which I think in this meta kind of makes sense. Like it is slower, right? Lexi was really the problem with like the alpha rampages and the barraging is she didn't mind giving you 2 cards to shut off a barraging, and she was too fast to play alpha. So it's kind of like that was where the contention came from. Normally the aggro decks back before Lexi would like always take the 7. They'd be like, yeah, give me 7. I don't care. I'm going to do 20 back. Lexi would just turn off barraging beatdown and then draw 2 cards and then beat the shit out of you anyways. So it was like this card lost a lot of value, but it makes a lot of sense.
I actually during that meta, I still had trouble cutting those simply because the games against Lexi that I was winning was when she was like, I would get her to like 13, and then I would go barraging beatdown Alpha Rampage, and then she'd have to give me New Horizons and Tunic or something.
Yeah, as soon as they give you
all of a sudden, like, all of a sudden the game's over in like my favor.
Yeah, it makes sense. That happens. I love Alpha Rampage. It was like the last card I was starting to cut, and I didn't even want to fully cut it. Like I took 1 out, and then I was like, okay, maybe 2, and then I missed it. You play the 1 Bravo, you're fine. You're like, why did I take these out? So
yeah.
And then your blues, right? So, I think there's 2 interesting call outs, right? I would say I have Ophidia, which I carry on me at all times because I love this card in Rhinar so much. And then Hold the Line, which is a new addition to our toolkit that I think you've been taking really good advantage of. So what is your opinion on our blues right now?
So Rhinar's blues are interesting in that everyone says they're pretty bad, and I am inclined to agree. They're good when Intimidate's good, and they're bad when Intimidate's bad, right? Yep. So Clearing Bellow and High Roller are incredible cards when you want to be intimidating a lot. When your opponent doesn't care about blocking, those cards say nothing. They have no text. Yep. So Hold the Line is something that I was very high on initially when the card came out because I was already playing a tank Rhinar variant, and I was like, oh my god, give me more D-Reacts. And now that we've entered like this draw 2 meta, there's so many decks that love drawing 2 cards in a single turn that you can very frequently get 5 value of just off of just arsenaling the Hold the Line. You want to be a little bit careful about just waiting for them to have a power turn because ultimately you want to be having power turns too, and you're not just like sitting there waiting for them to kill you. So I wouldn't sit around waiting for this for too long, but it's great into like Katsu where he goes like Surging Strike for 5 and you go 1 armor block on Scabskins, Sink Below, and he goes okay, Ancestral Empowerment, and you go Hold the Line. It's still like particularly good there, just extra block 2, right?
Yeah, really shut off like one of those important turns. And I asked you like right after your list came out, I was like, okay, what do you think of this card? And you kind of explained this to me a little bit. I took it to my armory, and another thing that's really interesting with Rhinar is a lot of the time when we're drawing random cards off Blood Rush, you tend to want to be safe. So you want to hold on to more cards than you might not need unless you're getting really pressured out. And so I drew like 2 blues off my Blood Rush, and I was like, this is going to be weird. And normally it'd be like a useless card that you're going to have to like just hold on to and pitch next turn. You don't really want to arsenal a lot of our blues a lot of the time. And then that card, I was like, oh wait, I can defend with this. So I just tucked it in my arsenal. I was like, oh cool. Like I have 2 free block off my Blood Rush now. That's kind of cool, because it's just an interesting interaction. Because like you can never pocket a Wrecker Realm, right? Like you just can't do it.
Undesirable. Undesirable.
You just don't want to do that. You can't pocket Eye of Ophidia, right? Okay, and where your list starts getting really interesting, right, is how many defensive cards you do put in your list, right? And I think you have 2 of these little pocket picks right here. Cadaver's Contraband, I'm assuming it's like a Drill My card, right? Drill My's good.
Or Prism.
Or Prism. Okay, I like that. Get another Blood Rush off an Angel. That's kind of hot, Um, do you and then a race face like the one of why a one of a race face?
So honestly, I would like to have more race face, but at the moment, because of how the meta is shaking out, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not that much Phi so far that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
There's Viscerai is nowhere.
Yeah.
And against Dash, we already have so many good defensive tools. I haven't really felt the need to bring a race face in.
Okay.
However, having the one copy allows me to pivot and bring it. I bring this into Dromai sometimes. It's just an extra 6, right? Since my regular deck 6 count is so low, this doubles up not only as like insurance in case like a Viscerai shows up or a Phi shows up or I have to channel like Frigid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Iyslander, erase face, great.
Yeah.
And then it also doubles up as a 6 into Dromai since she's expected to be like one of the higher performing decks in the current format.
Yeah, it's just like a multi-tool card, right? And it has serious impact against some of our more tough matchups, right? So that makes total sense to me.
Yep.
And then you Savage Beatdown. You talked about this a little bit, but like I saw you actually play this card. You did. So like how do you get this card to work? Because personally, I struggle with this card. When it works, it's amazing, but most of the time, I'm too afraid to stick it in my arsenal. So like, what's your thought process with Savage Beatdown? And like, how do you use it so consistently?
So it really helps my Ninja matchup and Viscerai matchup. Really against aggro, where I need to be applying more pressure so that they get to a state where they need to start blocking me. A Blood Rush for 2024 doesn't seem quite as big as a Blood Rush for 18, but Blood Rush for 24, that's an extra 6 points of damage that they likely won't be able to block that turn.
Yep.
I can only use Savage Beatdown when I have Heart and Cross Trap. So if Heart and Cross Trap is no longer available to me, I usually just block out with it.
Yep.
There was one game against Akatsu where I had already popped my cross trap pretty early, and then the hand was just situated in such a way that I had to pocket a Savage Beatdown, and I ended up being able to pitch it, roll on a Savage Feast turn later, and then play Savage Feast into Savage Beatdown, and it ended up working out.
Savage Feast and the Savage Beatdown is hot. It's a lot of damage. Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible when you can get this card to work consistently. Like, it's just a mindset difference. I think I just haven't really achieved yet as a Rhinar player. Like, I know Clay was really heavy on Savage Beatdown. I know like Feather Lord is really, Jose Lau's really heavy on Savage Beatdown, and now you're on it too. So maybe I just need to adapt. I might be the problem.
We'll see. Heart and Cross Trap plus Savage Beatdowns were the closest things that I was considering cutting from the list before Pro Tour, or not Pro Tour, excuse me, Battle Hardened Pittsburgh.
Okay, let's see. We'll also see what some of our new cards we're getting with heavy hitters. Like maybe there'll be some more. I like the concept of this card a lot. Like making you jump through a lot of hoops for something really explosive and really powerful, right? Like it's got the intimidates on it. It's got the damage on it. It's a good game ender. So I like the concept. All right, and then we're in your defensive board, right? So you've got three fates, 3 sinks, Arg Smash, 3 all of that. That's all you got, and like a Remembrance. So why do you have so many D reacts in this meta right now?
So right now, pre-heavy hitters, Rhinar's power cards really are just like Savage Feast and Blood Rush Bellow. And also like a lesser known weakness of Rhinar is that he really can't clear a 4-card hand without rolling Scabskins unless you're running Wild Ride Pulping, and I'm clearly not on those cards.
No.
So what the Sinks and the Fates allow me to do is draw 2 cards. Let's just throw out a hypothetical and say I have like a blue, a CNC, and 2 D-Reacts. So 1 Fate, 1 Sink, right? All of a sudden, I have so many different plays that are available to me based on what the opponent's doing. So I could do double D-React for a 2-card 8 and dig me closer to a Blood Rush Bellow or a Savage Feast. Or I could do block CNC and one of the D-Reacts for a block 7 off of 2, and then throw a Claw for 3, and then pocket the last D-React. Or I could, if my opponent decides like they're popping off this turn, this is a turn where I can block 6 plus 8, 14.
Okay,
that's pretty good already. Yeah, so it just like allows, and then like, or I can even like block 4 off of D-React with Fate Foreseen, throw the CNC, and then put the other D-React into Arsenal. There's just like so many different options.
There's like a lot of people who play the game who are especially newer players, right? They tend to calculate value on aggression value, right? Like how much damage am I doing? But as a mid-range hero, or at least the way that we both play Rhinar, right? Like it's more mid-range, slower, right?
Yep.
There's actually there's just total value. So I can remember an example, like I was at a Pro Quest, a local one. It was like my winning in for top 8 or whatever it was. And I had, like, in my opinion, one of the craziest turns I've ever seen. It was like Oasis Respite off Tunic, gained a life, blocked 4. D-React, gained a life, blocked 4. Another D-React, or, not gained a life, but blocked 4. And then a Swing Big. And I was like, this is 21 value. Like, this is nuts. And, everybody else was like, that's just 8 damage, dude. I was like, no, it's amazing. Like, this is nuts. Like, you don't understand. Like, this is my pivot turn. Like, so there's a lot of, like, intrinsic value in these cards because they're worth 4, right?
Yep.
And I know it's a strange concept for, all of you guys who have really, really strong decks, but this card is worth 4 with an opt. This card is worth 3 with an intimidate.
Yeah.
Right? So intrinsically, these are actually pretty valuable in Rhinar's toolbox, like just intrinsically more valuable than a lot of our average cards here, right? This is a 3 value of 3 VPC, value of 4 VPC, right? And then these are not fates or opting and sinking cards in Rhinar is not a it's a huge deal, right? Because it gets us closer to Blood Rush. You fate for scene, you go, that goes to the bottom, it doesn't say Blood Rush on it, and then you're digging, right? And that's really important for a 3-card deck. Yeah. I really like your list. Everybody at home, this list is really good. Like, it's really strong. It's got, like, the right tech choices. I mean, clearly it's winning. You're winning all the way up to top 8 consistently, top 4 now recently in a major event against some really big players. Yeah, I think this list is awesome. I think you did a really good job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. So the next episode, because this is getting pretty long at this point. I think we're like 45, 50 minutes now so far. On the next episode, Dex and I are going to do something really, really special. And we're going to review him playing a game in one of these major events. And he's going to teach us how to be better Rhinars. And also, I'm hoping on the next episode, we get to announce something really interesting. And that is Dex is starting his own content creation soon. And maybe by then we'll have it ready and we can do a big announcement.
Yes, I actually can say that it is ready to go now, and it is
right.
it's a comprehensive deck tech of. It's very similar to what we've just done. I go a little bit more in depth into our deck and why I've chosen all of the cards that I've put in there, and there'll be a link to the deck list with my sideboard guide, so you can just take it to Talishar, play test, have a good time, see what's up.
That's gonna be awesome. So I'll put that link right down there. Go give a like and a subscribe. More content, the better, right? We need more of these brilliant players putting their thoughts out into the ethos. But yeah, thank you so much, Dex. We'll see you guys in a little bit.